Hello, sir doctor.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. Just finished training my good old buddy Warren.
Aw, Warren, I'm like a huge fan
He,
of Warren. He's pretty cool.
he is pretty cool. He's honestly I don't feel any shame in saying he's cooler than me and also saying everybody anytime I post some people love him.
I know, right? And what a cool thing that is that like somebody like him is like officially getting famous now because he's so cool.
He's
He's so
so humble too.
you should tell. I mean, does he understand like the feedback that he gets?
He in some ways, like some ways he's like someone told me I should download Instagram. I was like, you could. I was like, but he
Imagine.
yeah, he's so like matter of fact. I think one because like his generation, but also like he's just a Midwest farmer boy. So he's
Right,
just
like
like
practical.
yeah, task in front of me, get it done, and just like life is what it is type of person.
Right. Oh.
I mean, he's been alive for 90 years, so it's kind of like it's crazy.
Nothing's really gonna like shock him probably, but it's
Uh-uh.
pretty cool. It's
Oh, it's
pretty
it's awesome. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. It's Monday. I'm back from the road trip and
Uh-huh.
back into the swing of things and hopped up on cold meds. I'm rocking it.
Good. You're nice and high for us.
I know, right? I'm a little buzzy. I'm a little buzzy.
I love that. Why don't you give a little intro of who you are?
Oh,
Yeah, for the people, and just yeah, and we'll go from there.
okay. Well, I'm Tracy and I am a mom and a wife and a psychologist and I'm 53 and I am just like everybody else trying to find the balance in life and enjoy and take care of myself so I can live forever and do fun things
Hmm.
and just, I think balance is the thing that I am as focused on as possible.
When did because and I love that because I think it's you have a bunch of identities, but you also like you said you have this strive for balance. When did has balance always been a goal for you, or is it like or is it like you stumbled upon that after like some shit went down or
I've stumbled upon it after some shit has gone down. Yes, I would say that balance has been absent from probably the first 30 years of my life, you know, 30 or 40 years of just like extremes doing all sorts of crazy shit
Yeah.
and going hardcore into certain things and now it's just like yeah, it's kind of chill and find a balance of not too much of one thing and not too little of the other stuff and
Hmm. Yeah. I think we all kind of chase that goal of balance and it it's
It's funny because I don't really know if it exists like consistently, right? Like I
yeah.
think it's an intermittent thing, and if we can have a grasp on it, a lot of the time we're doing pretty well.
Yeah. I like that you have the psychologist background too, because I'm sure so many people come to you and they're trying to find this
Oh,
ideal balance, right?
yes. And then I have to like break it to them that, well, that's probably not as realistic as we've been told it is,
Right. Right.
because life doesn't allow for it. Life is always moving and doing things at us and to us and with us. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
We're gonna get some wise words from you this back. I like
I don't know about that. A
that.
little Tylenol
We won't
infused
we won't
wisdom.
force it, but oh, so for those listening, Tracy is my client right now. We've been working together for over 8 months.
Yeah.
What was kind of your journey with your health, your fitness before we started coaching together?
Yeah. Gosh, I've done a lot of things. I'm fortunate enough that I never did what I saw as like really extreme, like
Mhm.
yo-yo dieting stuff. I've always been trying to find a way to be healthier. And when I was younger, it was all about weight and size and trying I'm so conflicted about the idea of women trying to take up less space in the world, right? Because
Mm,
we're supposed to take up less space. That's the message that we get.
yeah.
And also take up more space, right? Like be empowered. And they're so in conflict with each other.
Yeah.
Um, but for a lot of my fitness and health journey earlier in life was all about, being skinny, basically.
Hmm.
Um, and as I've gotten older, I see that it is way, way more than that. But that pull is still there because it's a social
Mm,
thing. As you posted so beautifully yesterday, I think it was yesterday, or I saw it
hmm.
yesterday, your photos that you put up, right? It's
Yeah.
like even though we know what's real and healthy and good for us, we still fight with those little inner demons.
Mm,
My journey, I think the most significant thing that I ever did was the thing called Body for Life. It was a Bill Phillips plan, and it was like 6 meals a day and work out 6 days a week. And I did that for several years, and it was a very useful thing in a lot
mm,
of ways, but also not really extreme, but pretty rigid in a lot
yeah.
of ways. Not, I think after a while I get bored with the rigidity of it, or I always want to like tweak it a little bit. And
Mm,
that's what I've noticed in my work with you is I catch myself wanting to tweak things.
mm,
That's usually my sign that I need to just refocus, because
mm.
me pushing up against the guardrails a little bit and like a
Yeah.
little, there's a big part of me that likes to say fuck you to the norm, you know?
Yep.
And so when I start feeling the urge to do that, I've learned, at least for the most part, to reach out to you, and you
Hmm.
like, I'm going to say this and I mean it in the best way, but you're like, and you just fucking slap me down
That's
and like
right.
me back in a kind and gentle way of like, Matt,
Hmm.
what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing
Hmm.
that?
Hmm.
And it's good to like be questioned and to go, oh yeah, I am doing that thing that doesn't really help me anymore.
Yeah. Well,
Serve.
well, I think it's interesting because kind of like we just talked about how you're on a quest for balance, and at one point, balance for you was this 6 days a week, 6 meals a day
Yes.
rigidity, right? Where it's like you could follow that at one point until a next season of life came, and you're like, "Fuck this," right?
Right, right. And it really did work. And I, and by all accounts, I looked really good. I was
Hmm.
strong, all of that. But it required so much that it after a time it became like constraining. It was like a
Mm,
cage more than it was a path.
yeah. And I think a lot of people struggle with that too, is sort of how do we have structure, right, without feeling restricted, right? And I think that is such a fun this might be the name of the podcast, balance.
The balance
But
podcast.
it is an interesting thing of trying to find that balance between I need structure while also not feeling like I am overly restricted where I can't pivot if I need to in whatever direction. So I guess since we started coaching, how have you, because you have a really cool perspective from a psychological perspective, right? And self-evaluation. How have you noticed or how have you sort of grasped this structure versus rigidity versus maybe more open-mindedness? Like how have you sort of navigated that, and what have been like the big, I guess, key takeaways for you?
I think what you just said is it exactly, which is pivot,
Hmm.
because pivot is very different than you failed and have to start
Mm,
again, right? And I
yeah.
think that's when you have too much structure, that's what happens is you feel like you fail
Hmm.
and then you have to start again, versus, oh no, I sort of just got off the trail a little bit and now I got to come back to the trail.
Hmm.
That's that's way more comforting and comfortable than, oh God, here I go again. I screwed this up.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's what a lot of us do with too much structure. It's like, oh, I can't do this because it's too much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and some good examples like that we've done. I mean, I think originally we started you on 4 days a week strength
Mhm.
training, right? And then you got to a point where you're like, I can't fucking keep up with 4 days a week.
Right.
So
I'm
we
not doing
reduced
it
it.
right. Right.
Right.
So we made it 3. And
Hmm.
even now I still like, part of me doesn't always want to do the 3, but
Hmm.
it that feels very different than only doing 3 when I'm supposed to do 4,
Hmm.
sort of trying to motivate yourself from a sense of like, well, I'm failing.
Mm.
I'm not getting it done. And that doesn't go well, right? If you feel like you're not measuring up, you're not going to do the thing, or you're going to be more resistant to the thing, whatever it is.
Hmm.
So moving to 3 and admitting like that's not a problem. We just have to do it differently.
Yeah.
We have to, right.
Absolutely. So you touched on motivation for a second. how have you navigated that? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that a shit ton when they first get started, like either a weight loss journey, a strength journey, whatever it might be. How have you navigated like that motivation versus consistency aspect?
I think that motivation is a lie. I
Yep.
don't think it exists. I think that motivation is actually discipline.
Mm.
I don't think, we all wait for motivation. We want to get motivated, like we're gonna magically wake up some fucking day and like have wings and sparkles and be ready to go. And
Right.
that's not how it is. Like it's discipline. You have to just decide. And I think you also have to promise yourself. That's a thing that I teach myself and a lot of my clients, which is if you had a person that you were friends with and they kept promising they were going to show up for you, or they kept promising they were going to participate in something, and they flaked on you every single time, you'd probably drift away from that person and stop wanting to interact with them. And yet we do it to ourselves all the freaking time. We promise we're going to do something, and then we let ourselves down, and then we wonder why we feel like shit about ourselves,
Mhm.
right? So to me, motivation is really discipline and promising ourselves and honoring those promises like we would someone that we really care about.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is absolutely true. I think motivation is like a sprinkle of fairy dust that just does not stick, right?
Right, right.
And it's so true. I mean, I think that's really what I try to harp with all my clients is like you're gonna feel very fucking motivated once we get started, right? I think we had this conversation on our initial phone calls. Like you're gonna
Right.
feel like a fucking warrior when we get started, but
Yes,
it's
yes,
going to fade very quick, and all you're left with are the little habits we're trying to implement on a day-to-day basis, right? And I think that's so important. And the fact that like one, you work on this with clients a lot, but also it's have you noticed a difference when it comes to like yourself for these health and fitness habits? Like, is it another realm where you're like, I have to reinforce all these habits I am good with, maybe mentally, and now implement that with like the physical aspects of nutrition, fitness, all that?
oh yeah, no, I always have, it is a constant mindset that I have to keep reminding myself of. And like because
Hmm.
of the way that I message you, like I don't always do it. And but it is just sort of circling back and always trying to remind myself of, why do I want to do this? What
Mm,
is the goal? And for a long time, at my age now, appearance isn't the only motivator anymore.
hmm.
And it used to be, but now it's all about like, no, I want to be like Warren, right?
Yeah.
Or my friend, I think I told you when we first started, me and my friend Kent, who's 83, and we've gone on some like killer adventures with him, and he does all of it. And
Hmm.
I want to be doing the same shit I'm doing now when I'm 50 or 83,
Yeah.
for 30 more years, right? At least.
Yeah.
Crazy to
Absolutely.
think about.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what I always liked about your goals. Obviously, there's some aesthetic goals, right? Like we have a graduation goal coming up with
Or
your
of course,
daughter's
I
with your
want to work like have the sleeveless top of my daughter's
that's
graduation,
right.
look good, right?
Yeah.
But and again, that's in some ways that's silly because that's not what we're all going to remember about that day.
Right.
But I do like having like, you know, moments in time to look forward to and work toward. But you're right, aesthetically, that's there. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it's about being able to live and do things and not have to turn something down because I'm not fit enough for it.
Yeah. And you know what? I love that. I think that's really important for people to hear too, is that your overarching goal is like this independence, right? You want to be as independent as possible. You're not trying to have someone wipe your ass by the time you're 75, right? But then there's also like little micro goals where it's like, I want to feel very confident in my body and have these pictures to sort of memorialize my hard work
Right.
that I put in, like the months leading up to it. And I think it's important because a lot of people think, you can't have aesthetic goals and all these things. Well, you can. It's just it can't be, in my opinion, the overarching goal because
Right.
it will just reinforce a lot of bad habits and negative thought patterns that can take you down a bad rabbit hole.
Oh yeah, because it's all about like looking good to get attention or looking good to get validation from other
Mm,
people, and all of that stuff is false, right? it's all made up, and that's not the determinants of our value. Um,
Mm,
but it does feel good to look good too. So
right.
it's kind of man, it's a mind fuck. I mean, it
Yeah.
really, but it is, I think using the aesthetics as just like a piece of the puzzle is
Hmm.
fun
Yeah.
and useful to a degree.
Well, and here's the part where I'm selfishly enjoying this conversation. One, because obviously you're my client, but also two, I love psychology and therapy that goes
I know,
behind
I feel
it.
like you should be a therapist. I feel like the questions you ask me, I'm like, you little fucker. Like, don't shrink me back.
That's right. It's
That's
a
not
shrink
fair.
off, baby.
Like, right. Like, oh no, do not do that. I will win. I'll win. But no, seriously, you could be a really good therapist, truly.
Hey,
Truly.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
My question for you is because I think validation does play such a big role with goals or with appearance or especially weight loss, right? So how does and again, this is the part where it's nothing fucking do with it, but everything to do with your brain. How does
Right.
somebody start to create the pattern to get out of looking for validation from others or anyone else?
I think that, yeah, first of all, you have to recognize that's what you're doing, just like when you're seeking that validation, asking yourself, what do I really need? And can I give it to myself?
Mm,
Can I get it in any other way? Does it have to be reflected back at me from another person? And why do the opinions of others have to be the only fuel for that part of myself? How can
mm,
I think that's the thing, is like, how can I do that for me and not have to rely on that from other people? Um, and it's still okay to enjoy it from other people, but when it is a need that you're trying to like a void you're trying to fill, I think that's when it can get dangerous and really unhealthy, right? Because then you're just striving for something that
mm.
is in the hands of other people. You're like literally
Yeah.
giving your power to other people.
Yeah. I think that's so important what you just said because when it does come to validation, right? When you have like you just said, when you have that constant look for approval or validation from somebody else, like you just said, you're giving control, you're giving power to another person for basically allowing you to feel good or allowing you to feel secure or allowing you to feel strong or good in your body, right? So, like body image, right? For a ton of people. And I think that is so important because, so often we do that, whether it's with our parents, with our partners, with, prospective dates or anything like that, is we are giving this power to somebody who really doesn't give a fuck about our goals as much as we do,
Right.
right?
Right. And it's fleeting, right? Because maybe that person's a permanent member of your life or not, but opinions change, and at the end of the day, we're stuck with what's here, you
Hmm.
know, and do we create a place where we're stuck, or do we create
Yeah.
a place where we're comfortable
Hmm.
and as whole and healthy as possible by ourselves?
Yeah,
And that,
absolutely. And I
yeah.
think in terms of you know, to piggyback off that again is if we, like we said, if we are constantly on this journey of validation, then you're just gonna keep repeating those same habits and behaviors that
Mhm.
aren't serving you and kind of furthering those negative narratives you repeat in your head constantly that keep you in the same place.
Exactly, exactly. And then, yeah, and then it's just a cage, right? You're just stuck in there,
Hmm.
and other people hold the key,
Yeah.
and that's not a great place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now to circle back to you again, right? Put more pressure on you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Ryan. Love it.
Um, what if like now being in this health journey you've been in for the past like 8 months, what were some of the like biggest challenges you face from the beginning of your health journey that were kind of really difficult for you to overcome at first?
Um, the weight loss piece, right? Like recognizing what progress looks like when it's not solely the scale,
Mm,
recognizing that consistency is worth celebrating, recognizing being able to lift more weight is something worth celebrating, sleeping better, just like uh, expanding what I see success as, not just the number on the fucking scale. Oh my God, that's the battle, I think, for
Mm,
me, and I think for a lot of people, right? Is that's the only thing that we look at. Because I always joke around, like, if you get on the scale and it says you've gained weight, you just accept it. But if you get on the scale and it says you lost 4 pounds, I guarantee most of us step off and get back on
mm,
to check it because we don't believe it, right?
mm,
Oh, bananas. But seeing that is just one measure and not the full measure. And if it doesn't match what I've thought it should, not seeing that as a failure anymore, just being like, oh, more data. Like, I don't know if you
mm.
remember when I talked about getting the scale that does like the body fat and all
Yeah.
that. I was like, oh, that's another way to measure shit. And you're like, yeah, no, that's just another way to potentially screw things up because you're going to be looking for things as these numbers as the metrics of success, and that's not really
Mm,
what it is.
yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
really what it is.
Absolutely. And I think again that holds true to a ton of people. I think one, stepping on the scale, a lot of people, if the scale goes up, they might feel very discouraged, right? And there might be actions from there that lead them to more consequences. And some like it's a celebration, right? When the scale goes down, all that. And I think the most important thing that helped me in my journey a lot, and what I try to preach to clients too, is try to keep a net neutral approach to whatever number the scale is showing you, right? Because I think if we get in the habit of one, obviously we all know, like, hey, if you're beating this yourself up if the scales goes up, you're a fucking idiot, right? Because there's
Right,
nothing you can control.
right,
Vice versa, if you're celebrating every time the scale goes down, then you are also reinforcing that habit of negative effects of
right.
when the scale goes up,
Right, because when
right?
it's up, it's bad, and when it goes down, it's good, and that you just keep hitting that over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
and it creates like this fear
Mm-hmm.
and anxiety, and then that leads to all sorts of other stuff,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you know? Yeah.
absolutely. What were your initial expectations that when you started coaching about
Mhm.
your journey, and then what have you sort of myth busted since that time?
Mythbuster. That's actually really
Throwing
funny.
it back, baby.
I know, right? I think you manage my gosh, I don't even know what to say. When I start wanting to push up against the guardrails, you manage that really well. And I've had a couple other experiences with coaching where people just like throw their hands up at me. And then in the moment I feel like the sense of like, okay, well, you can't figure it out with me then, like, fuck you,
Hmm.
right? But with you, you're just like, why? That's why you'd make a good therapist, because you just
Mm.
ask all these questions that dig underneath and irritate the shit out of me sometimes. But then I'm like, why am I irritated? Because he's fucking right. That's
Yeah.
why.
Right. Right.
So
Yep.
I sort of had an expectation that you would create structure, you would create support, you would give me the workouts, but I didn't really fully grasp how much you're willing to actually engage and ask tough questions. And I remember once I messaged you from the gym. There was an exercise I was supposed to do, but
Hmm.
one of my clients was at the gym,
Yep.
and it was like this, it was going to be a whole weird thing. And you're
Hmm.
like, no, you're still doing it. And I'm like, no, not this time, sir. You do not understand the dynamics at play here. Uh,
Hmm.
so then you helped me pick something else, but you also don't just let me say, oh, I don't like that exercise. You're like, why?
Hmm.
Does it hurt you? Is it a
Hmm.
problem? Doesn't matter if you like it or not,
Hmm.
So
Right.
there's a toughness, and also like, but you're still flexible. So
Yeah.
you're gonna ask me why I want to do something and make me evaluate it, which I
Yeah.
really, that's new and different for me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one, it's almost, I try to lead as if like that's how I want to be coached as well, right? Where it's like I'm going to be no bullshit with you, right?
Right.
But I also am a fucking human being and want to know like how are you feeling with even it comes down to the minute like tracking your calories or getting the
Right.
scale out, because if I
Oh yeah,
constantly
I forgot
try
about
to.
the food scale.
Oh yeah.
We
Well,
had
that's a
days.
journey, baby.
Yeah, we had an epic battle with that shit.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll talk about that. And I think the like I said, the for me it's if I never ask you questions about why or how and I just try to fix, then I'm going over something that could be really, really deeply rooted into
Mhm.
everything else that you're doing, right?
Right.
And that's why it is so important to know how you're feeling and the whys, because then it helps me provide you with better solutions, right?
Right, right. And
And
it's personalized that way, right? I think so many
hmm
coaches throw their shingle up and they do all this, they have their beautiful like PDFs that they send people and shit and but they don't understand that piece of it, which is like if you don't question the ways that you push back or question the things you don't want to do, you're not going to understand yourself better. And you
hmm
as a coach aren't going to be able to understand how better to help someone. So it
yeah.
is, you do have to ask and dig underneath and get a bigger picture of
Yeah.
what's happening.
Absolutely. And it, like I said, it's very similar to what you do for your profession. And I think it's our goals as professionals is to have our clients become more autonomous, right? Like I want you to make fitness your second language. I want you to be more mindful of your nutrition a second language and have a good relationship with food in the process and everything else that goes in between. And also these problem solving techniques, right? Like
Right.
our goal, and that's why I love like the correlation between coaching and therapy, even though they have their differences is our goal is not to hold our client's hand, right? Like
Our
our
goal is,
goal is
I
to,
always say, our goal is to, my goal is to always work myself out of a job.
yeah, right? Exactly.
Right? My goal is to, and some clients are like, whoa, that I don't like that. But
Yeah.
the truth is, yeah, you don't want to be in therapy for the rest of your life, or you don't want to be in coaching forever. You want to learn this language and then be able to do it on your own.
hmm
Really.
Absolutely. So to
Yeah.
circle back to the food scale.
Mhm. My nemesis, the scale.
What was your, I guess, what was your initial challenge with it? What was the biggest pushback you felt with it? And what did it take for you to finally get into using that as a tool?
Um, I think initially it felt very I think I even said this to you, it felt very eating disordered kind of behavior, right?
Yes, I remember that.
It felt like I'm gonna weigh my apple. Like, what the fuck? That's
Yeah,
healthy,
right.
right? But now I see it as, yeah, I'm gonna weigh my apple because if I'm trying to track my calories in an efficient way so that I understand, there's a huge difference between a little gala and another kind of apple, right? And it's not that either one of them are bad. It's
hmm
just so that I can look at something and recognize how much value is in that thing and what do I want. Um, and I think Apple's probably a bad example, but it felt so controlled and restricted and
hmm
unhealthy. And so
Yeah.
I really pushed back against it. But using the fitness pal and those things, it's wildly different, right? Like I can enter salmon, and when I think I had 4 ounces of salmon or I had 16 ounces of salmon,
hmm
I'm not always, and that's a vast difference, right? I'd
Who
probably be
doesn't
able
know
to
a
tell
fucking
that.
pound of salmon?
Right, right, oh, come on. But like knowing like what a serving size actually is,
Right.
and then making decisions throughout the day based on, yeah, I'm gonna have some giant bowl of watermelon. I'm gonna have 400 grams of watermelon.
hmm
Okay, fine, but you should know. It's just, to me, it's like I should know what I'm doing. I should know what
hmm
I'm eating. And that's where it is now. It's just like it's information, it's data.
hmm
It's
Yeah.
not good or bad. It's my favorite thing to say lately. It's morally neutral, right?
Mm.
Just data.
Yeah.
And do with
Absolutely.
that data is up to me. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want to collect the fucking data in the beginning.
Yeah.
It's like, you shitting me?
Yep.
No, no, I'm not
Yep.
doing that.
It's so true. And I think your tipping point for that was you're like you weren't seeing as much progress, right?
Right.
And that was me just diving deeper again, be like, well, what's the methodology looking like? Like, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? And we kind
Right.
of got like that. Oh.
Yeah, like, also like, God damn it.
That's right.
Well, and I think you asked me one question, you're like, but you measure you count how many ounces of water you drink, and we count steps, and I'm counting reps, and like, isn't this just another thing that gives us information?
Yeah.
And that, to see it that way was different.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, I think that's why I enjoy doing these podcasts with my clients because I think it's such a relatable feeling that you have, and again, the process of it. And another way to reframe tracking calories is, it's either one, it's for some people it's like, hey, if you track your budget to know how much you're spending, you don't question that, right? It's
Right,
important because you need to know your end goal, right? Or your end net. Same with tracking calories. And also it's almost like, because your big goal too is one day not to track, right? Your goal is
yes,
to be intuitive and have just a great idea of how much you're consuming to maintain your lifestyle.
right,
So in order for you to get to that goal, so that's end goal, right?
right,
So in
right,
order for you to get that goal, we have to break it down into steps and say, okay, this is your end goal. This is where it starts,
right,
right? It
right,
starts with the actual application of tracking your food and your portion intake so that Tracy has a great fucking idea if she's eating 4 ounces of salmon or a whole fucking pound of salmon,
right.
right? Like it's
Exactly. Exactly. Because that way, when the scale does what it does, then I understand why,
hmm
right? Like, we just went on this big road trip, and I didn't track all week, and
hmm
road trips will require snacks. I don't know what
Absolutely.
you do.
1000%.
And we had a whole situation with snacks, right? And when I came home and I weighed myself today, it was up 3 pounds, and it was such a different experience than it would have been in the past, because I was like, of course it's up 3 pounds. And
Mm,
that's okay, because we had a great time.
yeah.
I enjoyed the shit out of my little Kit Kat snacks in the car, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't an upset. It was like, well, of course, that makes total sense based
Mhm.
on my recent behaviors.
Yeah.
Not bad,
Absolutely.
not good, like morally neutral, right?
Yeah.
It's data.
Yeah. And I love that you're a Kit Kat person because they're in my top five for sure. Like,
Right? Okay, so what's number
number
one?
one's Twix. I'm a Twix man through and through. Number
Twix
two is Reese's
is
Peanut
good.
Butter Cup. Actually, what? Kit Kat might be my three, to be honest.
Yeah, they're
Um,
the best.
those suck, especially if you get the bag that they're not wrapped. You're smoking
That's what
gun.
we had on the trip, of course. Then you put it in the dash, right?
Yep.
So
Oh, you
driver
guys are
and
pros.
passenger have equal access. Oh no, we're pro.
Snack savants. I
That's awesome.
love that. And I
Yeah,
think, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so yeah, like recognizing that results are dependent upon the behavior, and then
Mm,
not being upset when the results reflect the behavior.
yeah.
That's the thing,
That's
right?
huge. That's really huge. And I think that's a lot of growth I've seen from you, right? Because it part of your growth is you're holding yourself more accountable in a lot of ways, right?
Right,
You're recognizing how behaviors translate to certain results or feelings, right? And I think
right,
that's so important because a lot of the time people will say, "Well, I'm not getting these results," right? And you have to really, this is where the introspective comes in with your health and fitness and nutrition, is you have to really question, well, what have my actions been lately? I
right,
think we recently had an interaction like this lately too, where it's like,
right,
well,
right.
I'm not satisfied with my weight where it's been the last few weeks. Well, okay, well, let's break it down. How consistent do you really perceive you've been,
Yes. And
right?
I think I said like 85 or 90.
Yeah.
And then when I really looked at it, I figured out through the questioning that you were giving me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I figured out, no, that's probably 65, 70. So
Mm-hmm.
I was deluding myself into believing my behaviors were more in line with the goal than they had been. And that, I think that's such a powerful piece, right? Is our brains trick us for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason into thinking that we are doing all the things, like, well, I am only having 3 meals a day and I am drinking a lot of water, so therefore I should have lost 5 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but you're grazing on chips twice a day too.
Right.
So that handful here and that handful here there, you just added 350 extra calories. And
Mm-hmm.
those things happen sort of behind the scenes, I think, for a lot of people, and they don't
Mm-hmm.
really stay conscious of it. So
Yeah.
it's good to ask, like, well, what are you actually doing?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
really get people to look at it, because I think we delude ourselves.
1000%. Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things with that is, when it comes to the results, right? If you're expecting A+ results, but you're putting in 65% D or 70% C minus effort, then we have to just realistically rechannel his expectations, right? Because it's
Right.
oftentimes when expectations, you know, you know, for I'm blanking on the word, but when they go above our
All right.
actions, right? Then we become disappointed and we don't realize that, hey, your actions just aren't in alignment with your expectations. And it's so important because for some people, like if they're like, yeah, I'm okay with 70% effort, like because this is
Mhm.
balance, like we talked about, and this is realistic and sustainable, and I'm okay with the weight coming off slower. That's totally fine.
Right.
Right. And then for
Right.
some people, like they're just like, hey, I want these fucking results and I want them sooner than later. And that's when
Exactly.
you have that realistic talk where it's like, well, how much in alignment with my action am I currently? What do I need to be to get there sooner?
Right. Right. And I think that's where the coaching comes in, right? Is getting someone to sort of bring you back in to that introspection and to ask those questions so that you go, oh yeah, this is
Hmm.
actually what's happening.
Yeah.
Like having that outside perspective is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess to go along with that, so we had some challenges with it when it was like, battling that structure, rigidity, creating more balance, and then also reeling in some habits and realigning expectations. What would you say have been like your biggest wins to date since you sort of started coaching?
Mm. Just sticking with it, I think is the
Mm,
biggest one. I think in the past I would have definitely pushed back hard enough and given up by now.
mm-hmm,
Um, so staying with it and being less attached to the scale has been a
mm-hmm.
huge thing for me too.
Yeah.
Um, seeing the scale as just again pieces of information, not the end all be all of what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing. And then, just like being able to do cool shit at the gym and do shit
Yeah.
never done, like buying that freaking pad for the hip thrust.
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, I am in it. And I just bought a
Yes.
jump rope too. I'm super stoked. I just bought a jump rope.
Wow.
I know. But it was like that stuff I never would have done, right? I would have talked myself
Yeah.
out of it. And that stuff is fun. Or to go into the weight room and not walk out because it's really packed and be
Hmm.
like, okay, fuck, get off that bench. You're just storing your shit on it, dude. I'm gonna use
Right.
it now, okay?
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
just feeling like I belong there and enjoying being in there and doing it.
I love
You know,
that. What
I
what do
don't
you
even know if
go
you
ahead?
remember in the beginning, I was really sort of like, no, I'd rather do it at home. I'd rather do it at home.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I'm gonna get a way better workout if I go to the gym.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I can do shit at home if I want, but
Hmm.
then I know I'm half-assing it.
Right. Right. So now you're a
So
full-on gym rat. Your
I know,
evolution is
I know,
there. You're
bud.
grunting in the gym.
Not quite. I might get there. I thought about it. I thought about it. I've considered grunting.
Little
That's
grunt
a
here.
new one.
Oh, and I do think that is a great sign of like habit change, right? When you start to support it with other things, right? So whether it's like a gym outfit for some people, new gym
Right,
shoes,
right.
you getting this hip thruster pad, right? Like that's
And I
pretty
got
cool.
purple too. I didn't even like get black.
Yeah,
Purple.
right. Because but it matches who you are, right? Like
Yes,
yeah,
totally.
you chose purple because you're a vibrant person, right? And
Yes.
again, if we look at it in that way where it's like when when you're being yourself in an environment in which you once did not feel comfortable being, so
Right.
that shows confidence, right?
Totally.
And
Totally.
when there's confidence at play, that means that habit is sticking,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly.
Because
Exactly. I'm not afraid to engage in it anymore. I look forward to it, or I'm fine with it.
yeah, absolutely. And I think because I mean, perfect example for me is like when I recently started going back to yoga, I felt like a fucking fish out of water, right? Like I'm
Right.
walking in with like my yoga pad and like, oh, like haven't done this in a long time, and you do feel like that anxiety, right? A lot of people feel like
Mhm.
gym anxiety or exercise anxiety because like we just talked about, you don't have the confidence yet. Your skills maybe aren't there that allow you to walk into a fucking place and be like, I'm a boss ass bitch.
Right, right,
Watch me do this,
right,
right?
right. Totally. And also, who gives a shit at the end
Right,
of it, right? Like I
right,
always tell my clients, like what other people think of me is none of my business. Um,
right,
and if somebody thinks I'm an idiot at the gym, they're not gonna tell me.
right.
And if they do, I'm going to tell them to go fuck themselves. So,
Right. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And again, it's like giving our power away and giving everybody else control over our actions. And that is such a sad place to be, right? Because
Hmm.
you're looking outside yourself all the time.
Yeah, like that validation all that we talked about, right? And I
Mhm.
think a great Dr. Seuss quote, right, is those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind, right?
Yep. Another
So,
favorite quote is
oh,
Yoda.
go. Oh,
Um, do or do not, there is no try.
that's right. That's right. Don't half-ass your shit, says Yoda.
Exactly. Says the
Half-ass your
little
shit, do
puppet.
not. But yeah, I mean, I think that is so true, right? Because at the end of the day, when you go into a gym or new environment, you're trying to do a new habit, it's like kind of what we talked about is validation, right? Who are you doing this for, right?
Exactly. Are you doing it so everybody else notices you, or
Hmm.
are you doing it so you get like side eye from people or not? Like it's about who is it for?
Right.
What
Yeah.
is it?
And I think your goal in particular, your goal is to be a fucking badass 90-year-old hiking up Kilimanjaro, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
want anything to be like you can't do this, right? So if you were to go into the gym and not do a certain exercise because Joe Schmo from Stop and Shop, who's your neighbor, was at the gym,
Right, right,
you're kind of holding back your true omen, right? You're holding back your end goal
right,
because of this fear or this fear of judgment or perception or what they'll think of you because
right,
you're doing fucking hip thrusts or leg curls, right?
right. Exactly, exactly. And trying to figure out like, what is my goal? And if my goal
Mm,
is to be a badass and do stuff later in life,
yeah,
doesn't matter who's there or not.
yeah, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think that goes in my next question I have for you is so knowing where you are now, right?
Mhm.
What advice would you give to Tracy who's just starting coaching that
Oh.
you think she needs to hear?
Chill the fuck out and just trust this person that you've decided to invest in
Hmm.
and let him, you know, advise you instead of, well, what about that? And what about that? I mean, I think it's reasonable to ask you questions and to all of that, right? But
Hmm.
don't I think I went into it like motivated, but also slightly guarded,
Mm,
right? And I think being willing, I would advise myself to let him ask you these questions so you can understand yourself in this process better. I
mm,
wanted to pick that up earlier
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
I like that because I mean, and to be fair, right, it takes time to develop that trust, right? It
Absolutely.
takes time, it takes conversations, it takes results, right, to back up everything, right? And a lot of what we talked about takes like that introspective and asking the questions. Why am I doing this? Why do I feel guarded? Why am I not implementing certain things or anything like that? And I think that is so important. And also, I love what you said too, is like you call it chill the fuck out. I call it rule number six, right? Rule number six for me is don't take yourself so seriously, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Chill out and just like trust the process, right?
Hmm.
You're right. It does, I think for anyone thinking about coaching or coaching with you specifically, like what do you want and trust that this person you're going to invest in you that you want the same things. It's not
Hmm.
just about money, it's not just about a job. It's like you're actually invested and you want people to succeed and you're really happy for people when they do see results and
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
really like it, and that I think is a difference
Yeah.
from a lot of coaches too.
Yeah. Well, I think again, that's why it's cool that your profession as well. Like I get really fucking happy and emotional when my clients are like have a big win, right? Like a mental shift
Yes.
win or a PR win or anything like that. Because it's really fucking rewarding
Mm-hmm.
when you're the person you're trying to be guide to climb this mountain that they set in front of themselves takes that step and you're like, fuck yeah, right? Like it
Dude,
gets
I,
very
I know
emotional.
I mean, that is the best thing about my job too, is like when I've been working on something with somebody and then they come back and they're like, well, I did the thing. And I'm like, you fuck what? You did,
Yeah.
tell me all of the details, and
Yeah.
it's really cool to see people like step into the things that they didn't know they could do. But
Hmm.
we know all the time that they can.
Yeah.
Just a
Absolutely.
matter of getting
Yeah.
them there.
Yeah. It gets me very emotional thinking about it because it is like, because I think once you find that you enjoy helping people and you start to understand how to do that, what it takes, the
Yeah.
patience you need as a coach or a therapist, and when it hits, it's just like you get for me, I get like this like I'm gonna
Oh,
break down like all that. It's like
totally.
yeah.
It's beautiful because like it's like we get to hold the hope for people
Mm,
and we get to hold the knowledge that they are capable while they're still trying to decide if they are.
mm,
And then you see them recognize that they are and that they
yeah.
are capable. And it's like watching that light bulb go on is like it's literally the best thing ever. I always tell people I have the best job in the world,
Yeah,
truly.
absolutely. Yeah,
It's
I
the best.
agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It is rewarding and it just feels good. All right, I
Yeah.
got one more question for you, then I'll send your ass on your way. Okay.
And I am going to the gym after this.
Oh,
So
let's go.
yes, yes.
So to give you context again, the name of this podcast is called These Little Moments. Okay.
Yes.
I started this after I had my big breakthrough in mental health. So I was suffering from anxiety, depression, and my big breakthrough was, or my big little moment was I was at a seminar and a lot of people were being very vulnerable and sharing things they struggle with, fitness or nutrition or binge eating or body image or anything like that.
Mhm.
And I decided in front of this room of like 70 plus people that I was going to share that I struggled with anxiety, depression for the first time. And it was such a big little moment for me and catalyst in my life that really trickled on my own journey with vulnerability and being, you know, vulnerably naked in front of other people to show my true self and what I struggle with and all the good and the bad. So, what is a little moment in your life that sort of sticks out to you that has made you the person that you are today?
Oh my gosh. That's a heavy question, Ryan.
Yeah, well, we got it's like a good episode of a sitcom
Yeah.
where it's like you get the laughs, but you get the cries.
Oh my gosh. What's the okay? Just a moment that stands out to me.
hmm
Um, gosh, in any realm.
Yeah, any realm. And take your time with it. I don't mind how long of a pause it is for this because it is a
Um,
deep question.
gosh, I think I would have to bring it back to becoming a parent.
Mm,
Um, and recognizing that I was doing a lot of things that my own parents did that were just jacked.
ooh.
And like having this moment with my daughter where I realized I have to apologize to this kid, even though, no, let me say that again. I get to apologize to this child and be a full flawed human in her presence.
Mm,
Um, and that has been like just life changing to know that like it's important to show our kids that we are these flawed people and that we don't have it
mhm,
all together. And I'd say that, and then being a therapist in therapy is the same thing, right? Like I ask my clients to be so vulnerable with me all the time,
mm,
and it's hard to do yourself, it's hard to open up. Even in therapy myself, sometimes I still find myself resisting that
mm.
and then really trying to like that's where the magic is, right? Is like
Yeah,
being vulnerable with people. And I think that's, as I was talking about my daughter, that's the same thing. It's just like being really open and being willing to sort of splay yourself out in your humanity. And if that causes people to leave, then those weren't your people,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think vulnerability is the key really to everything. Like Brene Brown gets that
Yep.
right,
It's our girl. Yeah.
yeah,
Daring
exactly. Like,
greatly.
yeah, you gotta, if you're in the arena, right, you are going to be attacked, and that means that you're doing something right. If
Yeah.
and just being vulnerable and open with people that matter, I think is really that's where everything is.
Yeah. I love that. And I thank you for being vulnerable yourself with that answer. And I appreciate that too because I think, going through therapy myself, you work through a lot of your own traumas and all these things and you start to figure out where roots of issues stem from and all that. And then you for me, more recently, it's just been more empathy for either my parents or anybody else I've come in contact with, because you just realize that nobody has the manual for living life and what you say, what you do, and all these things. So having that empathy to say, okay, like this person's just doing their best, right? And they're
Yeah.
also experiencing life for the first time too. And you can't expect them to say the right thing all the time, right?
Right, right. Like I used to think, I really, maybe this is a part of that answer too, which is I used to think that saying my parents or anybody else like did their best,
Mm,
they did the best they could, felt like a cop out to me, right?
yeah.
Like we were giving someone an out. And as I've gotten older and done more therapy work on myself and with my clients, like I think it's really true. We all do the
Mm,
best that we can, even if in hindsight it's shit.
right, right.
That's the best we had at the moment. We made the best
Mm,
decision we could at the time, and having compassion for ourselves in that space and also for our parents and everybody else. Like, yeah, they did the best they could. Was it enough? No. But was it the best that they could at the time? And the answer I think is most of the time, yes.
yeah. That's I love that. And I think when you get to that point, it does feel comforting, right? To know.
Yeah. Because it's not personal then. It's not like
Right.
did some gnarly shit to you on purpose. It's like, no, they were trying to find their way in their first run at this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me. I felt very cool to be on the
Of
podcast.
course, of course. Where can people find you if you want them to find you?
Oh my gosh. I'm on Instagram at Dr. Traci Lowenthal. I am Sweary Shrink on TikTok.
Yep.
And I have a website, creativeinsightscounseling.com. That's
Amazing. Well, thank you. I love you. Appreciate you for being
Thank
on.
you.
And yeah, I'll be talking to you very soon.
All right. Yes, I'll be sending you some messages from the
That's
gym probably.
right.
All
Awesome. Well,
right.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.